All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Richard.lesperance. I go by the name of my man Richard. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. Today, I have the pleasure to have Barry Finlay with me. Welcome, Barry, to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, who is Barry Finlay?
Barry Finlay was born on the prairies in Canada, in Manitoba. I lived on a farm for 18 years, and I think that taught me the value of hard work and persistence and resilience. And I moved into Winnipeg shortly after that, got my accounting designation, and started working for the federal government. And then I moved to Ottawa, Canada in the late 70s and continued to work for the federal government. I worked there for 31 and a half years. And then I retired at the age of 55. Within about 6 months, I was bored and started consulting. And during that time, I had a bit of a health scare. So I went to the doctor. He told me my triglyceride levels were elevated. He said that could lead to heart attack and stroke. And I was the only one that could fix it. It was a matter of fixing the lifestyle. So on the way home, I stopped at a gym and signed up with a personal trainer. And she just about killed me for the first 2 or 3 sessions, but then eventually I started to feel better. And I was approaching my 60th birthday and trying to think of some way I could use my newfound health. And so my son and I decided to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And we did that in January of 2009. And that completely changed things for me. I started, I kept maintaining my lifestyle. I've done that ever since. I go to the gym 3 times a week and I eat better, I think. And I became a bit of a philanthropist. We raised a considerable amount of money for the kids in Tanzania. And I started writing. We wrote a book about the climb. And then I turned to thrillers and mysteries. I've written 5 thrillers in a series and another 3 mysteries in a series. But then I kind of came back full circle because after the climb, I came up with a quote that every mountaintop is within reach if you just keep climbing. And I thought about that. And over time, I thought, there might be some interest in a book if I wrote a book around that quote. So I decided to interview 8 people who had been through various challenges, from relatively small challenges right up to life-threatening situations. And so I interviewed those 8 people. I included them in the book, Just Keep Climbing. And I included my own story as well, and from the perspective of 15 years later and how my life has changed. So yeah, it became the book, Just Keep Climbing, and here we are now.
So, those 8 people, what are some challenges that they face, and how did they overcome them?
Yeah, well, the first one that I talk about is a woman who had a fairly well-paid career, executive career, and she decided to drop that, and she became a full-time author. And so she had challenges in doing that. And then there's a woman who went through a bad marriage and struggled with obesity. And at the age of 40, she became a Canadian champion bodybuilder. And then there's another woman who has run across the Sahara Desert and the Gobi Desert. And she had quite a bit of a health problem and had to stop running. So she had to change her viewpoint of life completely. Everything that was her was taken away. There's another woman who at 70 is a world-class sprinter in the master category. And then there are 2 recovering drug addicts who have really made something of their lives. There's a man who, he and his family are going through a civil war in Cameroon. And then there's a woman who was diagnosed with cancer and in 2020 was given 2 years to live. And she's just handled her challenges fantastically. So I came up with 5 kind of commonalities among them, the ways that they've overcome their challenges. And I call them the 5 Ps. So there's persistence, which takes into account a lot of things. It's dedication, it's hard work, it's resilience. And then there's patience. You don't have to do everything today, or it doesn't all have to be done tomorrow. We have to take our time doing things. And when we were on the mountain, when we were climbing the mountain, the guides kept saying pole pole, and in Swahili that means slowly, slowly. And that's part of just keep climbing and making it to the top, using the mountain as a metaphor, making it to the top. You just take your time and take one step at a time. And then the next one is preservation. By that, I mean, we have to preserve ourselves. We have to fight the battles that are worth winning. So there are many challenges, and we kind of have to, the old cliche, don't sweat the small stuff. And so we have to preserve our strength for meeting the big challenges in life. And then the next one is perspective. And by that, I mean that we have to keep the end goal in mind. So, you know, there are all these minor challenges, but at the end of the day, it's the final goal that determines whether you're successful or not. And then the last one is pride. And I think we should pat ourselves on the back when we reach a challenge, no matter how big it is. I think we should take the time to congratulate ourselves and give ourselves a pat on the back. And then I could add another one, and that's passion. And I think passion comes into play maybe a little bit more when we're retired than it does when we're working, but because we have the time and the flexibility to do what we want. But certainly passion is another aspect that kept these people going, the 8 people going.
When someone is in a dark place and they're dealing with pain that seems that it's never going to end, how does someone can deal with that?
I'm sorry, you broke up there.
Oh, I said when someone is in a dark place and they're dealing with pain, how could someone deal with that and see the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, that's a big issue, and I think they need to surround themselves with people who are positive, who will give them some positive feedback. Certainly, persistence comes into play because they have to keep working their way through it, and taking one step at a time, just focusing on the small steps, and eventually you'll get to the big step of getting through the pain. But I think we really have to surround ourselves with positive people and get some positive feedback, because I think that's what people who are dealing with pain are looking for the most, is somebody to help them through it, and just by taking one step at a time and slowly working their way to the end.
Sometimes they say when you go through adversity, it builds you up, like you grow from it. Talk to us about that. What's your take on that?
Well, I think if I use my own example, climbing the mountain, I kind of hate the word adversity because it's so overused. The sports, if you're into sports at all, everything that an athlete faces is adversity. So they sprain an ankle, or they do something and they're facing adversity. But there are people who are truly facing adversity, people who have major issues. And getting back to my own example, climbing the mountain for us was a challenge. I prefer to use the word challenge because it was a challenge, but it wasn't life-threatening, or well, I suppose it could have been life-threatening. But by taking our time and doing one step at a time, we were able to reach the mountain. But that changed my life. As I mentioned earlier, I became a philanthropist after meeting the kids following the climb. We had raised some money before we climbed, about $15,000, that we put towards a classroom and a well in Tanzania. And when I met the kids there, I was determined to keep going, and we ended up raising in conjunction with Plan Canada, about $250,000 for various projects. So facing adversity in that respect, facing that challenge, certainly changed my life. And I became an author. I became a philanthropist. I kind of turned away from my career, which was accounting, completely. And so I think it does make you stronger, and I think it does kind of focus you on things you want to do and things that are important. So I really think it does change things.
How can someone see the good in the bad?
Well, I think you see the good and the bad in everything. Um, I think we all face challenges every day and of various sizes. It could be a challenge to decide what you're going to wear for that day, or it could be something that's life-threatening. So that they go from one uh, extreme to another. And when we're looking at life, we see the good and the bad in everything, and we just have to be conscious of what is bad and try and overcome that particular thing, move away from that and focus on the good. So I think it's just a matter of being aware of our surroundings and again, surrounding ourselves with positive people that can help us through the process. And I think the good and the bad are there, and we can see them.
How important it is, would you say, in regards to emotion, for someone to control their emotions?
Yeah, one of the things I tried to do personally is not to get too high or too low about anything, and I think being an author has taught me that. I can give you an example of when we wrote Jerome Beyond, our first book. And when I wrote the first book, we had received a literary award that day, and we were pretty happy about receiving the award. The same day, we got a one-star review from somebody. And so we were excited about receiving the award, and then came crashing down when we got the one-star review, and it was on the same day. And my first reaction was to fire back about the one-star review. And my wife kind of told me that maybe I should just relax and think about it for 24 hours. And that's what I did. And obviously, you can't fire back. You can't do that. But the point is that you really can't get too high or too low about anything. And I always found I don't know if everybody else is the same, but I often find that when something really good happens, something is going to come along to offset it. And it's just the opposite thing, too. If something bad happens, something fairly quickly will come along to offset that. So we really have to keep our emotions in check and not get too high or too low about anything. As I said, pride is one of the 5 P's that I talked about. And I think we have to pat ourselves on the back when something good happens, but we have to expect that that's not going to last forever, and something will come along to offset it. And it's life's roller coaster, I think, and it's important to control our emotions, no matter whether it's good or bad.
When it comes to challenges, what do you see? What are the mistakes you see people do in regards to trying to overcome them?
I think getting too emotionally involved is one of the things. I think if you become too low when you're trying to overcome a challenge, it's difficult. You have to take turn, I think. If I go back to one of the 8 people in my book, she is an extreme ultramarathoner. So she's run across the Sahara Desert, the Gobi Desert, the desert in Chile, and she swam from Alcatraz to San Francisco. She ran across Antarctica. And so running was her life. And then all of a sudden, she develops cardiomyopathy, and the doctors tell her that she can't run anymore. So she took some time to kind of mourn that change in her life. But then she reinvented herself. She started walking in the woods and watching the birds, and she started beekeeping, and she took up golf, and so she managed to reinvent herself. So I think anytime a challenge comes along, one of the big problems is that we spend too much time focusing on that and not taking the time to kind of reinvent ourselves and push ourselves in a different direction.
How does someone stay motivated in down times?
Yeah, again, it's a matter of persistence. It's a matter of surrounding yourself with positive people and positive influences. I think we're all kind of going through downtimes right now with everything we hear on the news, and having come through the pandemic, that was a difficult time for everybody. And it's a bit a matter of finding out what motivates us, what keeps us interested, and what keeps us moving, and finding things that that will keep us motivated. So, and it's surrounding ourselves with positive people, friends and family who mean something to us. And maybe right now it's shutting off the news. It's the news is nothing but maybe it's shutting off the news and going out and sitting on the porch or something while the news is on, and enjoying the weather and the scenery and all the good things in life, and try and push the negativity aside. But it's really a matter of doing that. It's trying to shove that negative aside and finding the positive things to keep us motivated.
What would you say to someone who's trying to figure it out? They have so much obstacles and challenges, and they feel like they're never gonna get out. What would you have to say to that person?
Yeah, again, I think it's some of the things I've just said, but it's keeping things in perspective. That it's the bigger goal that matters, but we have to take bite-sized chunks and just small goals. Try and accomplish the small goals and feel good about that. And then the small goals will eventually add up to the big goal. But somebody who's kind of buried in problems, I think that's what they have to do is find something positive, something small, something that gives them satisfaction and makes them feel successful. A lot of times we measure our success by looking at what others have done. When I was a teenager, I thought that having 14 cars and 3 houses in exotic places was a measure of success. But your idea of success changes as you go through life. And so we don't need to look at what somebody else has done, because there's always somebody who will have more money, a better education, or a better job, or a million other things. We have to, and that's what matters. It's not what somebody else's success is. It's what makes us feel good inside. And so I think that's what you have to do, is pick small things that make you feel good inside and accomplish that. Pat yourself on the back, and then go on to the next one.
Where can people learn more about you and follow you?
Well, my website is www.barry-finlay.com. My books are available on Amazon and by order through most retail stores, and most libraries will get it in if they don't have it. So those are the best places to go to find the book.